My name is Silas, and I've been calling Nashville home for 60 years now. 60 years of breathing in the rhythm of this city, of hearing melodies spill out of every doorway, and of knowing the sweet hum of a perfectly tuned guitar. My own little corner of Nashville, a shop I simply call Silas's Strings, has seen more history than any fancy museum. It's tucked away on a side street, nothing grand, just a narrow storefront with a worn wooden sign that's a little faded by the sun and the years. Inside, it's a symphony of wood and wire, old guitars hanging like forgotten friends, mandolins and banjos gleaming in the soft light from the front window, and the comforting scent of lemon oil and rosin always in the air. For decades, this was my sanctuary, my workshop, my dream. I used to play, on those smoky stages downtown, the kind where dreams are spun and sometimes, just sometimes, they catch fire. But time has a way of slowing down the fastest fingers, and these days my passion expresses itself through the careful work of repair, coaxing new life into old instruments, making them sing again. I'd polish the fretboards, replace rusty tuning pegs, solder a loose wire, and string up a guitar until it hummed with potential. It was honest work, good work, and it kept the roof over my head and food on my table, even after my dear wife passed on. But lately, the quiet hum in the shop has felt less like peace and more like an echo. The bustling streets outside seemed to forget my little haven. Fewer musicians came in for repairs, preferring to buy new, cheaper instruments online or just letting their old ones gather dust. The younger crowd, they didn't seem to have the same appreciation for the craft, for the history in the wood. My hands, once so nimble on a fretboard, now ached a little more at the end of a long day of intricate work. The bills, they didn't ache. They just kept arriving, crisp white envelopes demanding payment for rent, for electricity, for the special tools I needed. Doubt, that slippery, unwelcome guest, began to creep into my shop and into my mind. Could I keep this going? Was I just an old man clinging to a bygone era? Was my passion, my life's work, becoming irrelevant? The fear of losing Silas's Strings, of seeing the doors close for good, was a cold knot in my stomach. This shop wasn't just wood and wires. It was my legacy, my connection to the music that defined me, and my quiet promise to my late wife that I'd always keep doing what I loved. I tried everything. I stayed open later, hoping to catch a stray musician after their evening gig. I polished every instrument until it sparkled, rearranged the window display countless times, even tried to set up a simple social media page, though that was a foreign language to my 60-year-old brain. I offered discounts, even fixed a few instruments for free for struggling students, hoping they'd spread the word. I even contemplated selling a few of my most cherished, rare instruments, ones I'd collected over a lifetime, just to keep the lights on for another month. Each morning, I'd unlock the door, a glimmer of hope in my heart, only for it to dim a little more by closing time. The phone rarely rang, and the bell above the door remained mostly silent. One week, the compressor on my ancient air conditioning unit finally sputtered its last breath, right as Nashville was sweltering in the summer heat. Another day, a big box store opened across town, advertising cheap guitars and quick repairs, drawing away even the few customers I had left. It felt like the universe was conspiring against me, gently but firmly pushing me towards the exit. My hands, usually so steady, sometimes trembled when I picked up a delicate tool. I felt tired, deeply tired, not just physically, but in my very soul. I started to imagine the shop empty, the shelves bare, the silence deafening. Then came the day I thought would break me entirely. I had a meeting with my landlord. He was a kind man, but business was business. He showed me the overdue notices, the rising costs, the simple truth. I couldn't afford the rent anymore. He gave me a final week, a courtesy to clear out. My heart sank deeper than I thought possible. I walked back to Silas's Strings, the sun feeling like a heavy blanket on my shoulders, the vibrant music from a nearby cafe sounding like a mournful dirge. I sat on my old wooden stool, surrounded by instruments that felt like family, and I couldn't hold back the tears. It was over, all of it. The dream, the passion, the legacy. I felt a profound sense of failure, not just for myself, but for every note I hadn't played, every song I hadn't written, every aspiring musician I hadn't yet helped. I started making a list in my head, a mental inventory of how to dismantle my life's work, which instruments to try and sell, which ones to keep as painful memories. I decided I'd start packing up some of the smaller items first thing tomorrow morning. The next afternoon, as I was slowly, reluctantly, taking down some old framed photos of famous musicians who had once visited my shop, the bell above the door tinkled softly. I looked up, wiping my eyes with the back of my hand, trying to compose myself. Standing in the doorway was a young boy, maybe 12 or 13, his clothes a little too big for him, his hair a mess of brown curls. Clutched in his hands was a guitar, an old acoustic, its finish scratched, one tuning peg missing, and worst of all, 3 of its 6 strings snapped, dangling uselessly. He looked nervous, his eyes darting around the shop, clearly intimidated by the quiet and the instruments that must have seemed priceless to him. "Excuse me, sir," he mumbled, his voice barely a whisper. "My granddad, he said maybe you could help. I don't have much money, but I was wondering maybe you have a spare." "A spare string? Just one, sir. I really want to learn to play." He looked up at me with hopeful, wide eyes, the guitar a silent plea in his small hands. My heart ached. Here I was about to close my doors forever, defeated, and this kid with nothing but a broken guitar and a boundless dream was asking for a single string. I saw myself in him, that same hungry look for music, that same desperate hope. For a moment, my internal nemesis, that voice of doubt and despair, whispered in my ear, "You can't even help yourself, Silas. How can you help him? You need to save your strings, not give them away." But then I looked at the boy again, at the way he cradled that beat-up guitar like it was the most precious thing in the world, and something inside me shifted. It was a spark, faint at first, then growing into a small flame, reminding me why I had built this shop, why I had devoted my life to music. It wasn't about money, it was about the sound, the connection, the pure joy of it. I took a deep breath, a decision forming in my mind. "Come in, son," I said, my voice perhaps a little gruffer than I intended, but kind nonetheless. "Let me see that guitar." He stepped forward cautiously, handing me the instrument. It was in even worse shape than I thought, but it had good bones, a solid wood body, a survivor. I went to my workbench, my hands moving with a familiar purpose that had been missing for days. I didn't just find an E string. I found a full set of brand new phosphor bronze strings, the good kind. I gently tightened the loose tuning pegs, even found a replacement for the missing one in an old drawer. I cleaned the fretboard, oiled the dry wood, and then, carefully, expertly, I restrung the entire guitar. Each turn of the peg, each gentle pull of the string, felt like I was breathing life not just into the instrument, but into myself. The boy watched, wide-eyed, his mouth slightly open, utterly mesmerized. When I was finished, I strummed a simple chord. The sound filled the quiet shop, clear and resonant, a beautiful song that had been trapped inside the wood, waiting to be set free. The boy gasped, his face lighting up with a joy so pure and unadulterated, it felt like sunshine breaking through the clouds. "It's perfect, sir," he exclaimed, his voice now strong with wonder. But I don't have any money for this." I smiled, a genuine smile that reached my eyes for the first time in weeks. "Consider it a gift, son," I told him, placing the guitar gently back in his hands. "A gift from one musician to another, and don't you ever stop playing, understand? The world needs more music." I even showed him a basic G chord, his fingers fumbling but determined. He left the shop that day, clutching his now beautiful-sounding guitar, the biggest smile I'd ever seen on a child's face. He didn't just leave with a repaired guitar, he left with hope, and in turn he left me with something even more precious. I still had to close the shop, but that act of kindness, that moment of shared joy, had changed something inside me. It reminded me of my purpose, of the ripple effect of small gestures. I spent the next few days preparing to leave, but with a different spirit. I tidied up, made sure everything was clean and organized, ready for whatever came next. I called my landlord to confirm the handover. To my surprise, he told me he had something important to discuss. When I met him the next day, he looked at me with a knowing smile. "Silas," he began, "a woman came to see me yesterday. Said her son couldn't stop talking about an old music shop owner who fixed his guitar for free. Said you were closing up. She's a part of a community foundation, and she's been looking for a project. She wants to help. She wants to turn Silas's strings into a community music hub, a place where kids can learn, where instruments can be repaired and loaned out, and she wants you, Silas, to be the heart of it." My jaw dropped. The boy, the guitar, the simple act of giving had somehow miraculously become a turning point not just for him, but for me, and for the entire community. I didn't close Silas's strings. Instead, it became something far grander, far more meaningful. My new normal is filled with the laughter of children learning their first chords, the lively chatter of parents volunteering, and the constant, beautiful hum of music. I still repair instruments, but now I also teach, I mentor, I share stories. The shop is no longer just mine. It belongs to Nashville, to the music, to the future. I often look for the boy who started it all, and sometimes I see him passing by, a little taller, still carrying a guitar case, a confident swagger in his step. The greatest reward is hearing the music, seeing the passion ignite in someone else's eyes. It's a powerful reminder that even when things seem darkest, the smallest act of kindness can string together a whole new song, a whole new future. And sometimes, just sometimes, that beautiful melody lasts a lifetime.